The Bharatiya Janata Party has been talking about the idea of one nation, one election since 2014 and 2019. It is about conducting the elections for both the Lok Sabha, that is the national parliament, and for the state assemblies at the same time. In this video, we will break down what this concept means and look at the arguments for and against it.
एक और विषय है और वो भी इतना ही महत्वपूर्ण है, वो चुनावों का। वन नेशन वन इलेक्शन।
Under the current system, the elections to the parliament and the state assemblies are held separately, leading to frequent elections every year in different states. For example, Telangana and Karnataka voted last year, while we had our Lok Sabha elections earlier this year. Meanwhile, states like Tamil Nadu and Kerala will vote only in the year 2026. So, One Nation, One Election proposes to conduct elections for both Lok Sabha and the state assemblies once every 5 years so that voters can cast their ballot for both on the same day. The concept of simultaneous elections are not new. India practiced this system from 1951 to 1967, but the approach was changed due to the premature dissolution of some of the state assemblies in the late 60s. Despite the Election Commission suggesting simultaneous elections in 1983, it was never aggressively pursued until the Modi government started advocating for it since 2014. Now let us look at some of the opposition and support this concept has garnered from various political parties. Over 32 parties are in support of it, while only 15 are against it. Those in support of it includes BJP along with AIADMK, JDU, BJD, etc. And those against it includes Congress, AAP, DMK, CPI, CPIM, etc. And parties such as TDP and BSP acknowledges the good but calls it impractical. Now let us look at some of the arguments in favor of one nation, one election. 1. Cost reduction. Holding simultaneous elections could greatly lower the significant cost involved in the current system. The Center for Media Studies estimated that in 2019 Lok Sabha elections alone cost the central government over 10,000 crore rupees, excluding the cost of the political parties and candidates. With more than 50 state assembly elections held between 2014 and 2024, the financial strain is significant. Although simultaneous elections could lower the cost, there would still be an initial investment of 4,500 crore rupees for electronic voting machines. 2. Savings for political parties and candidates. The election costs have skyrocketed with 9,000 crore rupees in 1998 to nearly 60,000 crore rupees in 2019, with majority of the spendings are shouldered by political parties and candidates, especially for their campaigns and publicity. Simultaneous elections could help them reduce these expenses by cutting down the need for repeated election campaigns and advertising efforts across different states. Thirdly, corruption reduction. According to Media for Center studies, in the 2019 elections alone, an estimated 12,000 to 15,000 rupees were illegally distributed to the voters. By holding elections less frequently, such opportunities for large-scale bribery and illegal spending can be minimized. Fourth, policy continuity. One nation, one election could help the government focus more on the governments rather than preparing for frequent polls. This point is seen beneficial mostly for the national parties rather than regional parties. Fifth, reduction in divisiveness. Former Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi suggests that holding elections simultaneously could reduce the divisive impact of frequent elections. Repeated polls often lead to increased hate speech, communal polarization, and even violence. By having elections less often, the country could experience less of this divisiveness and tensions. Now let us look at some of the arguments against one nation, one election. First one, federalism concerns. Critics argue that having simultaneous elections could weaken India's federal structure by mixing the issues of the nation and the state. This may weaken the regional parties as it shifts the voters' focus away from the state-specific priorities, making it difficult for them to differentiate between the national and state concerns while casting their votes. 2. Constitutional challenges. Implementing simultaneous elections would require several constitutional amendments which would fundamentally alter the principles of the Constitution. Issues such as handling of the state assembly dissolution and premature elections would arise. 3. Weakening of legislature's power. Opponents argue that holding simultaneous elections could weaken the legislature's power by complicating no confidence motions and potentially diminishing the effectiveness of state assemblies. Fourth, policy paralysis misconception. The claim that separate elections could lead to policy paralysis is contested. Critics argue that moral code of conduct does not interfere with the current schemes and urgent announcements can still be made with the approval of the Election Commission. The fifth and the final point, accountability issues. Having elections every 5 years could reduce the accountability of the government and the representatives, whereas having frequent elections could ensure the representatives' accountability and accessibility to the public. Congress politician Praveen Chakravarty has come up with some arguments against simultaneous elections. In his essay titled The Dubious Economic Claims of Cowen Committee on One Nation, One Election, Mr. Chakravarty has come up with some of the arguments supported by data-based analysis. So let us look at some of these arguments. According to the essay, the claims that simultaneous elections would boost economy, avoid policy paralysis, and reduce costs are weak arguments. The author argues that the true cost of democracy is not just financial, but also the representation of varied voices. He also argues that the point that simultaneous election would boost economy lacks concrete evidence. The idea of simultaneous elections symbolizes the ideological difference between BJP's idea of India as a uniform entity and India Bloc's idea of India as a union of diverse states. The author argues that enforcing a uniform election system in India is a mistake and will give a false sense of efficiency. While it may seem efficient on paper, it risks ignoring local issues and diversity of different regions. This may lead to people feeling disconnected in areas with unique social and political situation. The push for efficiency overlooks the complexities of a nation as diverse as India. The author compares flawed research papers, the Singh Mishra paper for example, which is in favor of simultaneous elections, with the risk of poorly considered policies. This paper is mentioned because it includes a disclaimer hidden in jargons warning against overinterpreting the findings. Despite these cautions, the paper's conclusion could still affect policy decisions, leading to choices based on incomplete and misleading information. The author compares this to tobacco health warnings, suggesting that research papers should cite their limitations upfront in order to prevent misuse by policymakers. Now let us look at some of the arguments against by the opposition leaders. According to CPIM leader late Sitaram Yechuri, he said, "We totally disagree with terms of references of this committee because it presumed that one nation, one election is possible and how to implement it. In our opinion, this presumption itself is wrong. One nation, one election runs contrary to the spirit of our constitution. It is anti-democratic, anti-federalism. When a government loses its majority on the floor of the house, then its continuation is completely undemocratic." According to Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, one nation, one election is an impractical proposition that ignores the complexities of India's diverse electoral system and undermines federalism. It is logistically unfeasible given the vast differences in the election cycles, regional issues, and governance priorities. According to Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan, the agenda behind one nation, one election plans to undermine India's federal structure and concentrate power in the center. It seems that BJP has not learned from the setbacks it faced from the Lok Sabha elections. This is evident from the announcement by Union Home Minister Amit Shah that single election plan will be implemented during the tenure of this government. The Sangh Parivar was making a covert effort to shift India's electoral politics towards a presidential system. The slogan of one nation, one election is designed to undermine the diverse nature of India's parliamentary democracy. Each state has different circumstances and backgrounds. Ignoring these and conducting elections mechanically or imposing central rule by subverting the people's mandate will destroy democracy. The democratic community in the country must come forward against the Sangh Parivar's move to subvert India's parliamentary democratic system and the very idea of India.